Don in London, hello. May 18th, my video all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour, or both, as it was in my case. It seems that if we are addicted to a substance, mine was alcohol, equally behaviour becomes compulsive and addictive. So what was it? It was people, places and things. Being with the right people in the right place, doing the right things, having the right things, wanting the right things, always wanting and wanting. And these days the wants have gone away as long as my needs are met on a daily basis. Simple needs, roof over my head, and I suppose a degree of comfort which comes with sobriety, comfort to be myself and comfortable in my own skin. So in recovery from alcohol addiction, and no longer feeling like I need to be in the right place with the right people, having the right things. But I do have a fellowship which I go to where right-minded people have the same outlook as me, which is to be sober, and that fellowship is AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. I never speak for the fellowship, can't, and will not actually, simply because people in the fellowship are unique and authentic, and they can speak where they will for themselves. So that's part of what it is to be in fellowship. It's an inclusive fellowship where we only have one primary purpose: to stay sober and share a message of experience, strength and hope with other people. And it's nearly 7 years, which is quite a long time, one day at a time, a one-day program. Somehow it seems to have worked, and really my videos are about explaining why it's working for me. And this is all part of my daily meditation, if you like, a reflection on what is working for me on a daily basis, to be sober so the rest of life can work. And along the way, family, friends, community, medical people in particular help me stay alive long enough to get sober. And my jumping off point was the moment of clarity: either I get help and ask for it, ask for help, or perish. And it was touch and go more than once. So a certain degree of levity today. Life is as it is. And I was listening to a news program this morning where people were talking about retribution or revenge being something which is healthy. And as one person said, Gandhi, a quote from Gandhi: if you operate with the principle of an eye for an eye, everyone ends up blind. So is revenge any use to me in recovery? And the answer is no. Is anger any use to me in recovery? The answer is no. Is retribution ever going to give me satisfaction? And the answer is no, because I will always have a part in what goes on, even if it is as simple as being there in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong people and the wrong things. So these days I prefer to be sober and practice forgiveness for others and myself, and try and keep it level, human being level, not anything else. That's the only way I can operate. So how am I sober today? Well, the fellowship has helped me, and when I go to meetings of AA, the fellowship, what I see is what I get. That's called WYSIWYG. What I see is what I get. It's attraction, not promotion. And what we find in the rooms of AA are people in varying degrees of sobriety, from newcomers, and the odd newcomer who is still drunk and not really making sense of it, through to people who've been around a little while like me. And then there are old timers, people who have been in for years and have learned the wisdom of life, learning and continue to learn the wisdom of life. And there's also another sector, if you like, the barrack room lawyers, or the bleeding deacons, who will shout from the rooftops, the fellowship isn't what it used to be. And that's the absolute truth. Every single day fellowship changes by the nature of the people who are in it and the experience, strength and hope that you encounter. So on a good day or a bad day, what you see is what you get. And there are people who have good sobriety and sobriety which is in peril on a daily basis. Anyway, what is said at the beginning of the meeting is the AA preamble to put us all in the mood, and then we share a reading sometimes. and I share readings here for people who maybe cannot get to a meeting or have no clue what AA may do for them. So in essence, there is a 12-step program which works to keep us sober, and then we live life in our own unique, authentic way with as much freedom as is possible given our life circumstances, and we live the consequences of what we've done in the past. So to varying degrees, the damage done over the years we can repair some of it, and some of it we can't. So we live the consequences of what has happened to us and then make the best of what is. So the AA preamble goes like this: Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. Simple as that, a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. So clearly, the fellowship is not allied to anything, nor is it a cult, nor is it a sect. And the good news is, everybody in the fellowship has their own particular beliefs, outlooks, may be affiliated to anything or everything, and may be affiliated to institutions, organisations and political parties. So we don't give up our affiliations or beliefs or faiths. We retain what we choose to. It's the freedom to choose, and the fellowship remains open to all, inclusive around a desire not to drink on a daily basis. So I emphasise that over and over again, because it simply is for sobriety, so the rest of life can work. And the good news is we often make friends who we identify with on a daily basis and can help us because they have wisdom of sobriety and other things too. So we may find that there are other reasons why we stick with the programme, ultimately beyond sobriety, because we find people we like. That doesn't count if, well, no, it does count. What's important is staying sober today. So a few years in, as I say, I read from this book, The Daily Reflections, and for me it's all about step 5, which is admitting the exact nature of what has happened to us, the rights and wrongs of our life, from our life story in step 4. I also share from this book, the AA big book, Alcoholics Anonymous, that thick because it's got lots of stories about people who have found recovery. And I also share from this one the 12 steps and 12 traditions, and it's got other bits of paper stuck in it as well, my personal reflections from time to time which I share here. But for step 5, all covered in May in the literature as and when you want to find it, if you can't get to a meeting or you can't talk about it with another human being. Step 5 is all about opening up and being free to talk the truth of who we are to another human being, and also admitting our wrongs if we have the faith to God, or simply doing it in good conscience. But it is the expression of the inner us which is so important, getting out the information which has so far made us vulnerable to relapse. So by sharing our darkest secrets with another human being under the banner of confidence and anonymity often, then we get somewhere. And the person we share it with is our personal choice. It may be another person in the fellowship, a sponsor, or it may be someone completely different to the fellowship whom we trust, and then we work out what to do next. So it's all about action, and action works. So in step 5 on page 59 in this purple book, or purple back cover, it says, "This vital step was also the means by which we began to get the feeling that we could be forgiven no matter what we had thought or done. Often it was while working on this step with our sponsors or spiritual advisors that we first felt truly able to forgive others, no matter how deeply we felt they had wronged us." And this is the whole point of all the steps. It's about our conduct, our attitude and our behaviour. So we can find out why we got to a certain stage of what was going on and analyse our own attitudes and behaviour. Or we end up analysing the attitudes and behaviour of those around us who were involved at the time, and then we get into the blame game, which is why I mentioned retribution and stuff like that. Revenge, they say, is a dish best served cold. Well, revenge for me is a dish best served never, because it will always open up old wounds, either in ourselves or cause harm to other people. And it doesn't work that way in recovery. Forgiveness is really the absolute in any human behaviour. Because if we don't forgive, then we hold on to it, and it poisons us inside, always to try and find out what we need to do to exact revenge or deal with our anger and resentment. And there is no satisfaction in the end in hurting people. As I have often said, hurt people continue to hurt other people, so hurt people hurt people. Going on, it says this, I always go on. Often it is while working on this step with our sponsors or spiritual advisors that we first felt truly able to forgive others, no matter how deeply we felt they had wronged us. Our moral inventory or life story had persuaded us that all-round forgiveness was desirable, but it was only when we resolutely tackled step 5 that we inwardly knew we'd be able to receive forgiveness and give it too. So it is human to err, and forgive is also human, because if we don't, we just hang on to all the old stuff. Another great dividend we may expect from confiding our defects to another human being is humility, a word often misunderstood. To those who have made progress in AA, it amounts to a clear recognition of what and who we really are, followed by a sincere attempt to become what we could be. Therefore, our first practical move towards humility must consist of recognizing our deficiencies, or simply what's getting in the way of progress, and that's when we hang on to things which are of no use to us. And that is so true. I mean, what can you do with anger in the end? What can you do with it? You can chew on it. And if we plot and scheme revenge on an individual basis, we're at war with ourselves and with others, and that might manifest in our emotional state or what we do in terms of action. And we're held back, and we're still in the madness of old feelings and thoughts. And the whole thing about AA is to get round, not to get round it, but to work through and get to a place of forgiveness so that life can work. And in the AA Big Book, this one, on page 75 in the 4th edition, it talks about step 5. When we decide who is to hear our story, we waste no time. We have a written inventory, and we are prepared for a long talk. We explain to our partner what we are about to do and why we have to do it. He or she should realise that we engaged upon a life and death errand, because it's about creating a new way of living, or going back to the death knell of how we were. Most people approached in this way will be glad to help. They will be honoured by our confidence. We pocket our pride and go to it, illuminating every twist of character, every dark cranny of the past. Once we have taken this step, withholding nothing, we are delighted. We can look the world in the eye. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Our fears fall from us. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator, or just simply oneness with the world, included again, as and when it's appropriate. Yeah. Our fears fall away from us. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience, and for me that is living reality. So when we're completely absorbed in the moment of now, we are at our best connected to the truth of life. The feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. We feel we are on the broad highway. And it says here, returning home we find a place where we can be quiet for an hour, carefully reviewing what we have done. We thank God from the bottom of our heart that we know Him better, or that we are really in touch with our good conscience. It really does depend on your belief, not another person's. So nobody's trying to push you into a way of thinking or believing. It's what works for you. And so for me, God is truth, love and wisdom, and it's connected to my conscience, and I have a good conscience, and I also have a part of me which wants to be bad or go back to the old ways, because if I don't continue on the path of recovery, I can slide back. Taking this book down from our shelf, we turn to the page which contains the 12 steps. Carefully reading the first 5 proposals, we ask if we have omitted anything, for we are building an arch through which we shall walk a free man or woman at last. Is our work solid so far? Are the stones properly in place? Have we skimped on the cement put into the foundation? Have we tried to make mortar without sand? And I know, having heard many a person do their step 5, feel outrage and anger at the rest of the world, because they've used the first 5 steps not only to look at their own conduct, but also to analyse the conduct of those people around them, who they thought were part of the story. And the problem is, as a person tries to, I suppose, ameliorate or make certain that it wasn't all my fault, or tries to find fault in others which caused the problem, it doesn't work that way. It just causes more anger and resentment, because we want to tell them just how bad it was and why it was their fault. And the answer is, there's no point. We can't change history, but we can sure look at what we did which made all those things possible as well. So it's my part in it. What were the defects of character, or character flaws, or personality traits that I had? And mine were covering up my fear, putting on a brave face, and hoping that I had a strong enough ego to carry me through certain situations, hoping and hoping and hoping that they would turn to my advantage. And I don't mean in a nasty way, but I just thought if I ploughed on, it would work out. And the answer is, sometimes it won't, because we're hitting our head against a brick wall. And the only thing we can change in life is our own attitudes and behaviour, not the behaviour or attitudes of other people. I sincerely hope that siren is an emergency medical one rather than a police one. Anyway, Freedom to Be Me, in this book, Daily Reflections for May 18th. So it's been about forgiveness and forgiveness last few days, and now it says freedom to be me, and this is part of the promises, as it's called. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness, and it is a new freedom to have a different outlook, different attitudes, different behaviour. Freedom to be me. My first true freedom is the freedom not to have to take a drink today. If I truly want it, I will work the 12 steps, and the happiness of this freedom will come to me through the steps, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. Other freedoms will follow, and inventorying them is a new happiness. In other words, every time we do a step 10, which is what is disturbing me today, and what am I grateful for, we find that the inventorying process has absolute value at any time of day when things are going wrong, and sometimes when they're going right as well. Analyse why it's working today. If you don't, you'll never know how it works, will you? So when people say, I don't know how it works, and that's because maybe the step 10s are not being done and gratitude lists aren't being done. You know, Herbert Spencer said about ignorance, it's the worst thing. It's contempt prior to investigation. So if we don't investigate how it works, we only get so far, and then we get stuck again. So the whole program is about continual growth, gradual progress, so that happiness is possible, and freedom is not just an option, it's an absolute. I have a new freedom today, the freedom to be me. I have the freedom to be the best me I have ever been. So it's not being perfect, which was one of the things which tripped me up. I believed I had to keep on striving and striving and striving, and it didn't work out for me because I burned out, and the thing is, if we are continually trying to do the right thing, and I was like this in careers and relationships, and I guess I did quite well in some careers, and they went very, very well because I applied myself, always in the action, always in the connection, not looking to make it my way, but just finding out how things worked and how they could be improved upon through people or whatever means. And I guess in a way I was like that in relationships, but there was always a feeling of being less than which drove me, fear of being found out as inadequate, and that led me to very strange places, and continually, I suppose, to enrich my experience of life, that I had to put booze in between me and what I was doing in the end, to shut down the head, what was going on in my head. And these days I don't have to do that. There's less going on in my head probably, but it's more joyful in the sense that I actually experience living in the moment of now, rather than continually wondering what the next moment might bring, or where am I going to go in terms of career, job, money, relationships, you name it. So peace and serenity in the moment by being me, a day at a time. What helps me at any time is the serenity prayer, which is either to good conscience, to God, or a meditation as you choose. It's the can do, can't do on a daily basis, and the wisdom to know the difference. So I like it, and I'm no longer afraid of the word God, or what it might be in my life. And that's a big change in me from my background. So to God or in good conscience, as you choose, it's your personal understanding which always counts. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. For me, always in the moment, and just for today. Don in London, hello. It's May 18th, 2009. My video is all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. My substance was alcohol, my behaviour, trying to be the best I could, trying to please people, and never quite sure where I stood, with anybody really, including myself. So, one day at a time, now, I'm understanding how to be me, just me, on a daily basis, and understanding what is important. That for me, it's emotional, spiritual and physical sobriety, and if I get the sobriety bit right, I can then deal and cope with most things that go on. And if I can't cope on my own, I know a lot of people who can help me, support me. They can't live my life for me, but they can be included and a part of helping me get along. So I guess I suppose the moment of clarity for me in my life, and it took a lot of decades, well not a lot, but several decades to get to the point where I realised I could not live alone, and I could not deal with my addiction on my own. So that moment of clarity came on a January morning some years back, and I'm forever going to be grateful that I realised life could get no worse. And I was fed up of waking up and feeling like that life could get no worse, and it got to the point where I just didn't want to wake up. So these days I do want to wake up, and I do want to be part of, and I like to be included, part of anything and everything which is interesting and fun to be a part of. So what helps me along the way, of course, is the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't speak for it. Every single person in AA is a single fellow with an outlook, unique and authentic to them, and their path is unique and authentic, and we need not worry about it being trampled on, because we are making our choices in the moment to how we live today. So everybody's different, and we all have one similarity, and it's summed up in the preamble shared, the starting point of every meeting of AA I go to in London, UK, and there are about 600 or 700 to choose from, and I go 7 days a week, all around the clock almost, or through the waking hours of our time zone. And the preamble goes like this, which says, Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. It does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And in the last sentence it gives away what I'm doing here. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And I went to a meeting last night of down in Flood Street called Lest We Forget. And when we say lest we forget what it was like to drink. So a lot of the meetings are about experience, strength and hope. What happened, where we are now, and what we hope for maybe in the very short term or long term. So we still have aspirations and dreams, but they tend to be more in the bedrock of reality rather than just wishfulness or wanting. And I'm just looking for my coffee. Somebody asked me yesterday, or made a statement which made me think deeply, or wonder deeply, how far ahead can we project our lives? And it's very difficult really, because we don't know what's round the corner, let alone 1 or 2 or 3 years away. So whilst in recovery, and not down to lifestyle, when I got type 1 diabetes, I was quite relieved because I didn't have cancer at that time, and I'm susceptible to anything and everything, same as any person. And I was also pleased to know that I had clinical depression, which just made me able to understand where I was coming from and what I may do. And that means I need to include professional help, medical help. And at last night's meeting there were, I suppose, different points of view about external help besides AA, which makes life work. And for me, AA is the primary reason why I can live my life. At the same time, without family, community, society, professional help, I wouldn't be here at all. So the gift is we find out what works for us and keep on sticking to the path which works best. We still make mistakes because that's part of life. It's not to be overwhelmed by them and then think we need to deploy our self-will to get our way. It's actually making good choices with what is going on around us, and then we can be guided, and if we are following a path to our dreams, then all too good. If we're not on the path, then we can reappraise and then decide what to do and when it's appropriate. So we have to live in what is, the reality of now. And here on YouTube, yes, I've been reading my books. I put them somewhere else. I share daily reflections, which is 1 page a day, and as Bill sees it, in this one, as many pages as you like, in order to get some serenity. And serenity is about knowing what we can do and what we can't do. No big rocket science. They say the fellowship program of 12 steps is quite simple, but the trouble is we humans make it complicated because we keep on imposing our will on ourselves and others, and so we get cross, and it can cause psychosis in its worst manifestation. So I try to not be psychotic on a daily basis, whereas before, in my last drinking days, I knew I was killing myself, was urging myself on, and still not quite sure what to do. And that was a horrible place. I don't want to forget it. And I guess other people don't either, because when we share experience, strength and hope, it's all about where we are now and how life is working or not working. So we share our stories, and we then get the wisdom from others in these meetings. And I'm glad I do. I've got lots of friends because of it, and people who will offer help even when I don't know them. So in this one, Daily Reflections, there's 12 months in a year, 12 steps of action. May is step 5 for me, which is about sharing the fearless moral inventory I wrote about my assets and liabilities with another human being, and my good conscience or God. And again, in the brackets of God, I can still be an agnostic, atheist or a believer, depending on my luck, I suspect. But actually I'm very pragmatic. Spiritual is in the moment, seeing the truth of now. And if anything, God is truth, God is love, and God works through people. So for May 18th, it says here, freedom to be me. And that's what I love about this program. I'm learning who I am, incrementally on a daily basis. Or I'm becoming me every day. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. That comes from AA's Big Book, page 83, in the 3rd edition, probably. My first true freedom is the freedom not to have to take a drink today. If I truly want it, I will work. If I truly want it, sobriety that is, I will work the 12 steps, and the happiness of this freedom will come to me through the steps, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. Other freedoms will follow, and inventorying them is a new happiness. In other words, we acknowledge what we don't know and what we do know, what we can and cannot do. I had a new freedom today, the freedom to be me. I have the freedom to be the best me I have ever been. And some days it can feel a bit awkward and difficult, because type 1 diabetes is not easy to cope with, because it messes with the endocrine system and all the things which impact on our mood. So, as Bill sees it, page 105, I think, yes, that's it, move ahead. It says here, to spend too much time on any one alcoholic is to deny some other an opportunity to live and be happy, and be happy. One of our fellowship failed entirely with his first half dozen prospects. He often says that if he had continued to work with them, he might have deprived many others, who have since recovered, of their chance. Our chief responsibility to the newcomer is an adequate presentation of the program. If he does nothing or argues, we do nothing but maintain our own sobriety. If he starts to move ahead, even a little, with an open mind, then we break our necks to help in every way we can. And the gift in there is realising that some people want it, some people don't want it. Some people want to do it their way, and that's perfectly right and proper. And some people, I don't know, there comes a point we have to lean on fellowship and not each other, or lean on one person and we could bring them down. But overriding all this with the serenity prayer, which says, God, or to good conscience, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference is simply in the day. And we are powerless mostly over people, places and things.